Hi guys, welcome back to another video on Angular 17. This is the 11th part. In this part, I'll be talking about interfaces, observables, how we can design different interfaces based upon different types of data. So currently I have created this project interfaces observables. It contains nothing. It has just default folder structure that we have when we create a new Angular project. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with creating a new empty service with an Angular CLI command. So let me clear the terminal and I'm going to write ngg for generate and then service for service. Let me create a folder and inside it I need to name the service. So I'm going to give it the name messages. So it's going to create a new folder services and inside it it's going to add this particular file. Alright, so now in this particular file, I'm going to show you how we can get the data from API, how we can get the constant data, and also how we can define the type of data which is being returned from that API. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to start off with importing few things. So let me first of all import HTTP client. And then I need to import observable from Next.js. Then I will talk about actually I need to define the type first of all, but here let's leave it like this. And now I'm going to create interface in the terminal. So ngg for generate, and now I'm going to define interfaces slash, first of all let's create the name data, and then I'm going to define the post. Okay, so here I'm going to open up this interface and open up this post, and inside it I'm going to define the type. So for now I'm going to go to the browser and I'm going to open up JSON placeholder posts, click on it, and this is the public API. So this is the API which I'm going to call. This video is particularly defining the interfaces types. If we have nested arrays of objects, nested objects, arrays of arrays, nested arrays, then we need to know how we can create different types of interfaces based upon the data. This is a very crucial concept if you want to use TypeScript in any of your Angular projects. So you can see that each object contains this user ID, title, and then the body. So we need to define these four types in our interface. And interface, you can say it is a data type, just like an integer or a boolean. These are the data types that this kind of data will be stored in a variable. Now we are defining this new data type called post, and means that the variable which have this data type is going to expect this particular data, user ID, title, and then the body. So let me close that. Now I'm going to import this post which I've just created. So import, and let's add the post from interfaces and then the posts. Okay, so here I'm going to come inside and I'm going to define the URL of that. So this is going to be API URL equals to, and then I'm just going to copy this URL because this is the URL of API which I'm going to call, and this particular value is of type string. So I will be defining string over here. Okay, and inside this constructor, since I need to use this HTTP client for calling any API, so I will be creating its object inside the constructor using the constructor of HTTP client class. So HTTP, which is the name of variable, and now HTTP client. Okay, so now I'm going to define a function get posts. This is a function, and now I need to define the return type. I'm using tab 9 AI assistant, and it is recommending me by reading the context of my code of this file. So I think that it is giving me correct suggestions. Sometimes it gives wrong suggestions when there is too much code. So I can hit tab. So I will select this. So let me go through if everything is well. So I will be using observable because whenever we call an API, this returns as an observable. I'm going to show you how we can receive the observable in our components. Okay, so here I have defined observable, and after this I have defined the data type of this particular API response. So this is the data type. This is an array of posts. Okay, each object is defining a post. So that's why I've defined this data type and an array, that the return type would be an array of post. Okay, and here I'm returning this response, whatever is going to be fetched from this API. And here I need to define the data type again. This is going to be an array of objects. So let me save it. Before opening up the app component, I first need to configure this app config file. And in this particular file, I need to add few things, otherwise it is going to throw some kind of warning in, specifically in Angular 17. Okay, so here I need to define provide HTTP client, and I need to define with fetch. So I'll come here and I will define provide HTTP client. Inside it I will define with fetch like this. Now I'm going to close this file and open up this component, and here I need to import that service and also that interface which I've just created. So I'm going to write import message service, and then I'm going to import the post interface. All right, and here I need to add it inside the providers. So providers and message service ending with comma. All right, so inside this component I need to create the object, and this concept is called dependency injection. I've already created a video on dependency injection. So whenever we create an instance of a service, means that we are not exposing the internal implementation of any class, and we use that class outside of that class, like a service is being used in this component. This concept is called dependency injection. I have explained this concept in detail in one of my previous videos. Okay, you can, if you are watching this from the start. So now inside the constructor I need to define private message service. Let's close it. And now let's define a variable. Let's say posts, and then post of type post equals to empty array initially. And now I need to define the lifecycle hook, which is ng on init. It triggers whenever the component gets mounted automatically. Again, I've already explained you that whenever we are using Angular 17, we don't need to implement this particular thing. In this version of Angular, it is already added over here in every class. So I'm going to write this dot message service. So this is an old way. The tab 9 is suggesting an old way of accepting these posts. I'm going to show you the recent way. So messages service dot get posts subscribe, and then inside it I need to define it like this. Okay, and then here I need to define next, and then the response of type posts of type array, and then I can write it like an arrow. And if we want to detect or accept any kind of error, then we can simply define an error block here as well, and we can define it like this. Okay, so simply log that out, and here we can define this dot post equals to response. Okay, so we can show these posts in our HTML file. So let's open that. We need to iterate through that. So for iterating through, let me first in the component actually I need to import ng class. So ng for, and I need to add this ng for in this imports array. Okay, because I want to show these posts in my template. So here let's define h1, and then I'm going to define the posts, and then I'm going to define the div static ng4 equals to let post of posts. And as you know that this posts is that variable which we have defined in the component, and inside it we can define it like this: h3 post dot title, and then we can define post dot body like this. All right, so let's try to run our project and see if we see the list of all the posts being fetched from this particular API or not. So this is the home route, and this is going to get triggered, and this is going to automatically get triggered, and then this is going to call the service which we have defined over here, and this is going to be returning this response. So the purpose of this video again is to define the interfaces for the different data types. This is not done yet. I'm going to define advanced interfaces just now after this. So here, let's go over here, let's refresh, and this is the posts. I think it should call that API. Let's inspect and see if it has called the API or not. There is no error, and let's click on the network and let's refresh and see if it called that API or not. So actually it did not call that API. So let's see what's wrong. So here, so this is the get posts from that service. Yes, this is fine. And then there is a response. I need to store this response. Let's log that response out from here if it is being called or not. So I have refreshed. It should log that out because I'm using extensions. So ng on, actually I have seen the issue. It should be ng on init, not ng on end. Now I will refresh and it should be triggered automatically and it should call that API. All right, so you can see that it has shown this response in the terminal, and now it has shown the response over here. Actually, it will not show the API call over here because when I created this Angular project, I selected the server side rendered. So these components are being rendered from the server side. So that's why it is showing in this terminal rather than showing the API calls here, because in the browser, the only those API calls are visible, which are, rendered from the client side. All right, so we have defined this particular interface. Now I'm going to show you the different types of data which I have defined over here, db.json. Okay, so this is the kind of data. First one is the languages. You can see that this is the array of object. This is simpler. I've just defined that, and this is the simple object. We need to define the data type. Here it contains this object, and inside this object there's another child key that contains an array of strings, and then there is this object order book by order, and this is the nested object structure, and this is the by order, and both of these objects having the same keys, and then this one is of type string, and there is another key. This is an array of objects, and these things are similar to the above by order objects. And then here comes another part. This is not an array but object. It has this child object and it has this further child objects with the similar key value pairs. So I'm going to show you how we can define the interfaces for these particular data types. So before moving further, I just want to let you guys know that I have this video must know TypeScript concepts in 2024, TypeScript best practices, TypeScript tutorial. This is not specific to Angular. This is specifically core TypeScript concepts. It includes intersections between interfaces and types, read-only properties, pick properties, record, type guards, generics. These are very, very important topics to be known in TypeScript, whether you are using Angular, React, Node, or any other technology using TypeScript, then these concepts are very important. I would suggest you guys to watch this particular video after completing this particular Angular video, because this is going to help you a lot while using TypeScript in your technologies, whether it's Angular or any other technology. So let's get started. I'm going to start off with this languages. So currently this is the local JSON data. This is not the data being returned from API, but I can convert this local data to behave like an API. I can call some kind of URL, and URL is going to return me some response of this data as an observable. So I'm going to open up another terminal, and I've already installed a global package called JSON server. Okay, let me show you the version I have. So this is this version. If you want to install this particular package globally in your system, if you are using Mac or Linux, you can start off with sudo. Otherwise on Windows, you can simply write JSON server, and then you need to install, actually I need to start off with npm i-g and then JSON server. Okay, and before this command you can write sudo if you are using Linux or Mac, but I've already installed that. I'm not gonna do that. So once you install this, make sure you restart your terminal of this VS Code, so it's going to get installed. Now I need to use JSON server, and I need to define this flag -- watch, and after that I need to give the path of that JSON file which I've created. So I'm already inside this 8.interface observable folder, and my db.json file exists directly inside this folder. So I can simply write db.json. I'll hit enter. So now you can see that this is the language's URL, and this endpoint is going to return the languages data. The second endpoint is going to return me the students data. So these are the URLs which are behaving like an API. Let me click on one of these. So order book, and now I have clicked on that. So you can see that this URL is returning this data. So I can use HTTP client to call this particular API to return me the data. Awesome. So let's open up let's close HTML. Let's open up the service, and here first of all I need to define the interface. So I'm going to open up the data, and here inside this data I can define the interface for the you can say languages. So let's define languages. Okay, and here I need to define the data type for this one. So it has this ID of type number and name of type string. So ID of type number and name of type string. All right, so let's export this, and now I'm going to open up messages, and here let's copy this get posts, and here let's define this particular URL. This one I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it over here rather than using the API URL. Okay, and here let's write languages to change the name of the function, and here I can define languages from that interface. Let's copy this and let's paste this over here. Okay, so what is that? Let me close it. All right, so now I've created this particular function. Let's go to the component, and I'm just going to remove this log statement. So inside the ng on init, I can simply call that particular API just like I've called that get posts. So now inside it I can define this dot message service dot get languages and subscribe. So let's use that, and here I need to define that languages. So this is an array of objects. Now I can define a variable to store this response and show it in the HTML, but I've already shown you how we can iterate through the array of objects. I don't want to waste time on that. The main purpose is to understand how we can define the data type and create different types of interfaces in this video. So I can simply log this out to see if the data is being logged. Okay, and one benefit that I want to show you is that the benefit of the interfaces is that if I try to detect the kind of properties inside an object, then I can simply define. Let me first save it, and let's refresh here as well and see if it logs out. uh, let's refresh, and yes, you can see that it logs out the same data which is being returned from that API. And now, since this is an array, I can define into a single index, and if I write dot, it is going to show me the ID and the name. And this is the benefit of this particular interface which I have just created. But if I define any of array, or I don't define any data type, then it will not help me for anything. So if I define dot, it is not going to show me, it's not going to help me write down different properties. Okay, so this is the benefit of TypeScript, to make things strict, to define data types for any kind of variables. Okay, so for now, let's save it. All right, so let's move further, and we have this particular data type which is the student. So here I can define the student data type in my data.ts. So let's export interface student, and it contains ID of type number, it contains name of type string, it contains phone of type string, it contains age of type string, and then it contains array of strings for the languages. So I can define languages, I can define array of type string. Okay, so this is the one way I can define it like this, or there is another way I can define it like this as well. It's up to us, but I will go with this approach. Okay, so let's save it and let's go to the services. Let's copy this thing, and I'm going to change it to students because my API server using JSON server is already running. So get students, and let's verify if it shows student and student here as well. All right, so let's come here, let's copy this thing, and here I can actually call get students, and rather than any, let me change it to languages again. Okay, so rather than any, I can use the student from the interfaces. Okay, so this needs to show all the students. Let's save it. It throws an error. Let's see what's wrong here. So we have this student. So this is not an array, actually. This is a simple object, I believe. So let's go over here in the services. So this is going to return us a single student. If we see the data, yes, single student. Now I can save it from here. Let's refresh this page. It still throws an error. Let's verify. So I've called this get student. Let's change its name, get student, and this is the API / student. I have written students here, so let's remove that now. All right, so this was an issue. I think I wrote the student here. Okay, this API was not existing. This is the reason it was throwing some kind of error. So now you can see that it has returned this kind of data, which is perfectly fine. And if we want to extract out some kind of properties from it, I can simply write dot, and it's going to show me the languages. So I can define the languages, and it is going to let's define 0. There is no property, so that's why it's not showing. So this is the benefit of this. As we are moving further, it's going to get complex. Let's define an interface for this kind of data type. It has this long data type. There is an object inside it. There is an array of objects as well. There is an type string, and then array of objects again. Okay, so let's move to the data, and here inside I need to define the data types. First of all, let's export interface and then order book. Okay, so first of all, there is an array of objects, I believe. This is an array of objects. So let's first define this particular object, order type, price, and volume separately. I can define directly here. Since these properties are being repeated 4 times here, it can be repeated multiple times because this is an array, and these objects can increase. It can be the hundreds of objects. So I'm going to separate out this particular object now. So above this, I'm going to simply define interface. I'm not going to export this because I'm directly going to use this interface in this particular file directly. So order is the name. So first one is the order type of type string. Second one is the price of type number. Then there is a volume of type number. All right. And now inside the order book, since it contains an array of object and each object is belonging to this particular order. All right. So I can define this particular by orders property, and then I need to define an array of order. Okay, this is how things are going to work. And cell order is another property. It is going to be the same. All right, and in between we have this particular string of type string, which we can define over here. This is of type string. So this is how we can define an interface for this kind of data. So by order, created timestamp, and now let's see that if it gives us proper response or not. So let's go over here, let's copy this and get orders, and this shows one object, I think. So here I can define order book. Let's see. Yes, we have the order book from interfaces. Let's copy this, and here I need to define order book matching the proper API. Okay, and now inside this component, let's copy this. Let's paste it over here and get orders, and here order book, there is nothing needs to be added. So let's see, and yes, you can see that it has returned this data with the same kind of information that we had in db.json. And let's try this out. So this dot, so you can see that I write dot and it is showing by orders created timestamped. Yes, and if I write by orders, this is an array of object. So let's get the first object by writing, or maybe the second object. Okay, and if I define dot, you can see that it is showing the same kind of types within order type, within by order, like order type, volume, and the price. And this is how the TypeScript is getting work. Lastly, there is this kind of data, this one, objects, string, object, and then third level objects, and the similar kind of data in each of this object. So let's come here, and I'm going to define the interface for this. So I can define export interface latest prices, and then first property is the status, then the prices objects of objects actually. So now I can define the status of type string and then prices. Okay, so prices is an object. Okay, this is not an array, so I can define an object, and inside it there is another object. There is a BTC object. Okay, there is LTC object, and there is Dodge object. Okay, here let's see. All right, so these are being repeated. So whenever there is a repeated objects, we can separate out here. Okay, so I can define the interface, and let's name it price. So let's give it bid of type string, and then ask of type string, and then last of type string. Okay, and now I can use this price here. So this is the interface that we have defined for this kind of data. All right, so let's go over here. Let's define this. get, let's name it get prices, and latest prices, I believe, from interface. Yes. So let's copy this, let's paste it over here, and this is going to be the latest prices in the API. So let's come here and let's copy this and see if it prints the proper response. So get prices and latest prices from that interface, and let's save it. And yes, you can see that status okay prices, and let's try to write dot and see. So dot prices, yes, and the status, let's go into the prices and let's write dot, and yes, it is showing the BTC, Dodge and LTC. Let's go into the Dodge and let's write dot, and yes, it is showing all the properties of the price interface as well. So this is the bid. All right, so the Dodge dot bid, so this is the value 23.5. After saving above file, it should only print 23.5 for this particular log. So let's save it. And yes, you can see that it is just printing 23.5. So our interfaces are working pretty fine. Again, I would suggest you guys to watch my other TypeScript video, which I have shown you in between of this video. That is very important. I don't want to repeat the same topics in every video. That TypeScript video is generic for every kind of technology which you are using, it Angular, React, Node, Vue. So wherever you are using TypeScript, you can use those concepts. So do watch that video after this video. So for this, thank you so much for watching. That's pretty much it. In the next video, I'll start talking about forms. There are multiple types of forms. So comment below if you have any question. Do like my video and do subscribe my channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next video.